So get a piece of paper because you're going to take some notes. And you're going to draw X. And we're going to be writing down the different neurotransmitters here. You're going to learn about the neurotransmitters. We have this really wonderful brain and the ability to understand the neurochemicals of our brain now. And it's kind of simple. We have 2 stress chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol. And then we have 4 chemicals of happiness. Okay, these 4 chemicals make us feel good. These chemicals create stress, particularly in too big of doses. We need a little bit of cortisol just to wake up, right? Just like a little bit of salt in your food is good, but too much cortisol is like too much salt, all right? And so stressed out is too much cortisol. And one of the basic math equations that we can use for ourselves is that we need to have enough positive neurotransmitters running through our brain and body to offset the stress of cortisol. I'm going to repeat that because it's so important. We need to have enough of these happy neurochemicals in our brain and blood to offset the stress of cortisol. If the balance is imbalanced, if we have more cortisol than happy brain chemicals, we're not going to feel good. And if that goes on for an extended period of time, we get used to that and it becomes like a set point. So we need to boost the happy brain chemicals, and of course, antidepressants are one way of doing that. Serotonin reuptake inhibitors stop the brain from soaking up serotonin that it already makes. So that's what SSRIs or antidepressants do. And so they're not actually creating serotonin. They plug the parts of the cell that vacuum it up so that the serotonin hangs around the brain a little longer. All right. But there are natural ways that we can also use. I mean, I'm all for antidepressant and other kind of medications under the circumstances where people need them, because just like people have different chemistry on different things, they also have different brain chemistry. And some people are born with a lower amount of serotonin running in their brain. For sure. And so there's just like we have diabetics and things like that that need support with insulin. So, but we can also do this ourselves. We really need to learn how to do this ourselves. And because it's in the mix of these, how much of this is running around, and we can do specific things that increase the amount of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins that run around our system. Now, this information comes largely from this website, Loretta Brunig from the Inner Mammal Institute, and she's great. She's funny. And we'll just watch this one video, but you can watch the other ones too if you want on your own from the Inner Mammal Institute. She's got several of them here that explain them. But what she's doing is talking about how these chemicals work and how we can increase the positive neurochemistry of our brains. So let's take a look, and this will just be a short intro.
You have power over your brain chemicals. You're controlling them right now, in fact, but you don't know how because it's so natural. This video series explains your power over your happy brain chemicals so you can turn them on in new ways and avoid unhappy chemicals. First, you'll learn a special job of each happy chemical: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphin, and the job of your unhappy chemical, cortisol. Then you'll learn about the neural pathways that control your brain chemicals. You'll find out how you built your neural pathways and how you can build new ones to turn on your happy chemicals in new ways. I'm Loretta Brunig, founder of the Inner Mammal Institute. I study the animal origins of our brain chemicals. I was amazed to learn that our happy chemicals are not meant to be on all the time. They evolved to reward you with a good feeling when you do something good for your survival, and to warn you with a bad feeling when you see a survival threat. When you know how these work in the state of nature, it's easy to see what they're doing inside you. Each of us manages our happy chemicals with neural pathways built from our unique individual life experience. We are born with billions of neurons, but they're not connected to each other. You connect them without knowing it because happy chemicals are like paving on the roads of your brain. Each happy chemical surge of your youth paved a neural pathway that tells your brain where to expect rewards today. Each unhappy surge paved neural paths that tell your brain what to avoid today. You don't do this consciously.
Okay, so where you are now has been pre-wired from your past. All right, so that's what that is. The past has pre-wired your brain so that you get rewards from certain things that you do that are habits, and you withdraw from other things that you do. So the wiring is already established, and because of neuroplasticity, we can continue to work with that wiring.
Your brain simply connects all the neurons active in the moment something good or bad is happening. This is how our ancestors wired themselves to find food and safety. It's how you got wired to meet your survival needs. Each brain wires itself to meet its needs by finding more of what feels good and avoiding what feels bad. Your verbal brain has trouble making sense of your neurochemical ups and downs because they're managed by structures that do not process language. Underneath your verbal cortex, you have the same operating system as all other mammals. You have the brainstem, often called the reptile brain, and deep inside, a bunch of little structures you've probably heard of, like the amygdala, the hippocampus, hypothalamus, often called the limbic system. This mammal brain is attached to your spine, so in order to take action on the thoughts racing in your cortex, you have to spark your mammal brain. But the mammal brain doesn't process language, so when you talk to yourself, it's all in your cortex. The mammal brain has two basic gears, forward and reverse. It constantly distills your sophisticated thoughts into a step forward toward reward or a step back from threat. A forward step is motivated by a spurt of happy chemicals that says, this is good for me. A retreating step is motivated by unhappy chemicals that say, this is bad for me. This neurochemical guidance system motivates a mammal to survive by looking for ways to feel good. Of course, it seems like people do things that are bad for their survival, but the mammal brain defines survival in a quirky way. It cares about the survival of your genes, and it relies on neural pathways built in youth. It's easy to see how we can end up with some quirky pathways that we'd rather do without. You have power over your brain chemicals because your cortex can step on the brakes, which gives your mammal brain a chance to generate a new impulse. But it's not easy because your electricity in your brain flows so effortlessly into old neural pathways. Fortunately, you can build a new pathway by feeding your brain new experiences. Anyone can do it. This video series shows how to build a new pathway by repeating a new choice every day for 45 days without fail. You will give your electricity a new place to flow. It's challenging because your old pathways feel natural, so leaving them feels unnatural. But when you understand your mammal brain, you will persist, and on day 46, your new choice will feel normal, and you'll be eager to start your next rewiring project. More complete instructions on how to do this can be found in my book, Habits of a Happy Brain, Retrain Your Brain to Boost.
It's a neat book. I have it. So Habits of a Happy Brain. So we're going to look at some of the, isn't she adorable? And she has other videos that you can watch too on here describing the different chemicals and stuff, but it will take too long. So we have to buzz through this video, my shortened version of it. So we're going to learn about these 4 neurochemicals and how we can stimulate them, how we can do, yes, she is, how we can do specific things to stimulate them. Okay, so adrenaline and cortisol feel bad because they're designed to get us to avoid a threat, right? So we can tell ourselves that when we feel too much cortisol or too much adrenaline, that we're feeling threatened, and that what we need to do is help ourselves feel safe, feel secure, right? So we want to move towards cultivating these happy brain chemicals. We can, this is a point that Loretta makes about how we don't have to be mad that we have these, that we can make peace with our unhappy chemicals. We don't have to be mad that we have them because they're a natural part of our mammalian survival, like my dog barking at the mailman coming by, right? So the dog is, that's exactly, cortisol rushes into the dog's body, and it's the same with us. We have the same kind of reaction. What the dog can't do is consciously choose to do things to help itself feel better on a regular basis. We sort of have to do that for our dog. So the positive feeling neurotransmitters, as she mentioned at the beginning of the video, help us take steps to meet needs. And the negative, the painful ones, adrenaline and cortisol, motivate us to avoid a threat, to get out of the way of a threat. Now, she also mentioned several times that where we are now has been pre-wired, and that those pathways are grouped pretty well. And so it will take some consistency to help override them. And she used the 45-day marker, that it takes us 45 days to do something on a regular basis to really get a new pathway grooved, right? Like 45 days of meditating for 1 minute, 45 days of saying 3 gratitudes to yourself a day to boost up, make it automatic, say. And then another 45 days to make it totally automatic, to make it a conditioned response. So we'll be looking at each of those 4 neurotransmitters and how we can boost them. And as I mentioned there, this information is grounded in this book by Loretta's. And she's also got tons of information on the website. And she offers a lot of information for free. So if you're interested, go to the Inner Mammal Institute and just sign up for her newsletter. So these are the 4 that we're going to look at. Loretta also mentioned in that opening video that these come out in really short spurts, so that we have to continue to cultivate them. So what we're doing now is status quo. If we want to feel better, we'll have to do some new things. We'll have to add to the status quo. So the first one we're going to look at, and the first one you can put in your chart and start taking a few notes up on, and in particular, dopamine. See, and we'll write each of them in these 4 different boxes as we approach them. And you can just jot a few notes as we go through dopamine. And the first thing to write down is I can get it, because that's the short summary of dopamine. I can get it. Going after something is what dopamine. Dopamine is something like it originally motivates us to go after food, to find shelter, right? But we have higher order needs, so we want to go after esteem needs and creativity needs and social needs, right? So it's the idea of I can get it. So we stimulate dopamine when we have goals that are meaningful to us, that we're pursuing, that we're actively taking steps to pursue. And when we do small steps, like when we do things like little things like make our bed. People will get a big dopamine boost when they clean out their closet, because they've achieved something, right? They've set out after a goal and they've gotten it. They've set after a goal to have some more simplicity and they've achieved it. So things like simplifying an area of your home and cleansing out areas of your home will boost dopamine. Creating what you want, taking steps toward creating what you want. Even micro steps will create dopamine. It says here that regularly taking even very small steps towards things that are important to you, right? Really small steps. And even one thing at a time. When I'm changing my diet, I usually focus on changing one thing at a time, right? I'll focus for the beginning on getting rid of gluten, for example. And then after I've got that one down, after I've figured out how to live a life without gluten that is sustainable, finding alternatives, then I'll shift to letting go of sugar, right? One thing at a time. So small steps are very dopamine supportive. Creating a vision board of dreams, goals, and inspirations. When you look at your vision board of what you want to manifest or create in your life, which is a neat project idea, that also inspires dopamine because it reminds you of what you're moving toward. So having meaningful things that we're moving toward is very important. And that can also be things like things to look forward to. So having some things, my father, one of his favorite things was always have something to look forward to over the weekend, right? Always have something to look forward to a few days out. It was one of his favorite ways of keeping himself inspired. We get dopamine vicariously by watching others, which is one of the reasons why we so like to watch TV and play video games and things like that. Video games and social media give us very quick reinforcement, so it can become addictive. That's why we get these little dopamine boosts when we get likes. We get little dopamine boosts when we whenever we do make milestones, like we're seeking to win on our video game. We get a dopamine boost when we win that level, and so we want to go to the next level. So this is all, these video games are ingenious methods of working with dopamine that I wish we would figure out how to incorporate more in the educational scenario, in addition to things like confetti. When you finish an assignment, I actually feel good when I get the confetti when I finish an assignment. That's a little dopamine hit, and they've been genius about weaving that into Canvas. We need to weave that into our life. We need to weave confetti into our life. We need to find ways to have confetti, even if it's silly, right? Even if we have a little bubble blower and we blow bubbles when we achieve small goals, what we're doing is we're reinforcing ourselves for making those movements, and that encourages us to keep making those movements. Other things that really stimulate dopamine that are also great project ideas, any one of these, is taking on a new challenge, learning something new, or experiencing an adventure. Okay, all three of these, because all of them require us to set micro goals and achieve them. Like we're always, when we go on an adventure, we experience these new challenges that we have to face and overcome. And it's that process of facing and overcoming that stimulates the dopamine, as well as the variety. So any kind of new challenge that you might want to take on, learning something new or experiencing an adventure. I already mentioned that dopamine is programmed from prior experiences. So we may find ourselves like grooved to go to social media or go to TikTok or something like that. We get these habits that give us these quick hits of dopamine, which is okay, but we want to restrict those, right? And we don't want that to be our only source of dopamine. We want to diversify it. So we're also enjoying the dopamine that we get from the confetti over finishing an assignment. We create our own confetti, and we create ways to engage in the world that gives us feelings of reward, right? So we want to diversify our dopamine sources, and be sure we are rewarding ourselves for the things we want to strengthen. This is even small rewards, like the brain, our mammal brain, we know intellectually that confetti at the end of finishing an assignment is kind of silly, but it still makes us feel good because it's speaking to the mammal brain, right? So we want to use the same process for ourselves, finding ways to reward ourselves in small ways, things that you find that bring you a little bit of an uplift, giving yourself those things and giving yourself the support when you extend effort, right? I'm rewarding myself for. We need to reward ourselves for. Okay, now we're going to shift to the next neurotransmitter, which is serotonin. Now, serotonin. So we'll start a new thing. And serotonin, Loretta defines it as I'm top dog. She really emphasizes, and for good reason, that one of the major sources of serotonin is when we think we're really good, when we are high on the pecking order, when we are proud of ourselves, when we think other people respect us and are proud of us. We do get serotonin boosts from winning, okay, from being top dog, as she said. But I like to think about it more as when we feel respected by people that matter to us, and when we feel self-respect rather than superiority. Even though hierarchy is throughout nature, every single species has hierarchy, and those at the top of the hierarchy get dopamine boosts for being. So when we win first place, we get a huge serotonin boost. And one of the places that people get serotonin boosts is feeling morally superior to other people. That's one of the huge sources of serotonin within ourselves that we really got to watch out for, is the idea of when I feel superior to somebody else, I get a hit of serotonin. And people don't realize that. And if we start feeding off of serotonin from feeling superior to other people, then we're really going to, get ourselves into a head trip. In particular, moral superiority. It's the pleasure of gaining a one-up position. But I think that mutual respect is probably one of the most healthy, mindful ways of cultivating serotonin. We feel serotonin when we feel significant or important, and we need to feel significant or important. When we take pride in our work, when we do high quality work, and we put effort into it, and when we receive social recognition from peers and communities. So we can do things that help boost serotonin for ourselves. In particular, this is, I already mentioned, the one-upmanship aspect of serotonin. We get a boost when we feel bigger or stronger than another. This is the dynamic behind moral superiority and the drive to have as much as the other person, social comparison. So it's the drive behind both of these. This is cute. This is just a fun little video clip to watch on this. Seen this monkey? I don't think so. No. Okay, this is really so adorable. Okay. This is our sense of fairness is sort of wired in, and even primates feel it. So let's check this out.
It became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys. And I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees. But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food than you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
Mad because she didn't get a grape. Threw the cucumber.
She tests a rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
It is we have a built-in sense of inequity, basically. So even the little monkey has it. Doesn't like that the other monkey got the grape. So the Stoics would say to offset this with the virtue of temperance. We can increase serotonin by treating ourselves with respect. And this is one of the main things that we have been focusing on in the mindfulness class and with the meta phrases. Developing a belief in our own worth by acknowledging and appreciating your strengths, honoring your wins, right? Being willing to honor our wins and not shove them aside is a great shift. The whole time has been sort of taught to go on to the next thing and not really focus on it. But in reality, people who do really well take a few moments to honor their wins. They celebrate their successes, and this propels them forward. This is sort of the energy. It puts wind beneath their wings, so to speak. Be a friend to your being. This is what we talked about today. Treat your body and mind as a friend, your mind and your emotions as a friend. Learning to be there for ourselves. I like to use the phrase of marry yourself first. Commit to being a best friend to you first. Be there for you. Be willing to be there for you. Come through for you. And I like this quote, the only person, when I catch myself comparing myself, I say the only person to compare yourself with is yourself yesterday. The only person to compare myself with is me yesterday. And I shift back to that to get myself out of the one-upmanship kind of modality. And again, celebrate wins, even the little ones. If we focus on our losses, we'll depress our serotonin, even if we're a rock star or CEO. So it's really interesting to see, with as much of the research that I do, how many people that are in high stations who have had great success because they focus on what they haven't done yet, or the small parts that they didn't do well, that their well-being is muted, is way lower than you would think it would be relative to their success. So we need to build the habit of focusing on our wins. And one exercise to do that could be a kind of project, is to keep a running list of your successes, or challenge yourself to write down 100 things you did right over the last, say over the course of the semester, over a block of time. This is one of the things that it's a benefit of things. I don't know if you've heard of the bullet journal, but it's a neat journaling methodology that gets everybody into one book. And it includes writing down your successes and accomplishments and checking them off. And it's self-reinforcing. It produces that serotonin. And then allow yourself to focus on the people who respect you. Be really aware. Distinguish the people that do treat you with respect, right? If there's people that don't treat you with respect, you can ask yourself, how can I respect myself more in that relationship where I don't feel treated with respect? Where do I need to step up for me, for being there for me? And then one way of helping ourselves focus on the people who respect us is creating a Jedi council, or identify the people who are really supportive of us and holding them close, having a picture of them up on the wall, anything that reflects back to us visually, because so much of our senses goes to visual stimuli, reflects back to us visually that we're respected and cared about. And do something that would make you feel proud of yourself. Most of us have something nagging us in the back of our minds that we want to be doing that we haven't taken steps toward. We feel like we don't have time, and maybe we don't have time or haven't had time. But now there's carved out time because of this project. So you can literally make the excuse to make progress. And micro steps are good. Outlining the kinds of micro steps, breaking things down. All the greats, Elon Musk, the way they tackle problems is they take a large problem and they break it down into a whole bunch of tiny little problems, and they solve those one tiny little problem at a time. And that's a great way to approach getting yourself to do that thing that would really make yourself feel better to do. Eating a gut-friendly diet and getting sun, 20 minutes of outside time a day will, sun on your skin, stimulate serotonin in your body. Taking vitamin D is a good idea, especially nowadays, since we're spending more time inside. And exercise and meditation increase serotonin as well. And gratitude. Now, you've already seen this video, but gratitude practices work because our brain processes things we imagine very similarly to things that we experience in real life. So when we're processing appreciation, it's almost like we're recreating the experience of having that or being gifted that, and it lifts us up and gives us a feeling of well-being. So starting a regular gratitude practice, like writing down 5 things a night that you're grateful for. So here's a short list of serotonin boosters. random acts of kindness stimulate serotonin because when we do things for others, we're feeling good about ourselves for doing those things for others. And we also feel the oxytocin, which is the connection neurotransmitter. So doing acts of kindness stimulate both serotonin and oxytocin. It's good to notice, be aware of, take stock of the people that you influence in your life rather than dismissing that. The people that you touch and affect with kindness is the most important thing we can give to people. Kindness and attention, and being aware and taking some time to reflect and appreciate on the good effect we have on others. Letting go of control, engaging in kindness, spend a few minutes reliving a cherished moment, spend time in nature and the sun. Okay. And then we have endorphins. And endorphins are a little bit of an unusual neurotransmitter in that they're a painkiller. So they're designed to mask pain. So the zebra gets bit. Let's say he's able to shake the lion off and he runs, and endorphins will flood his body to mask the pain of being bit so that the zebra can get away. Okay, so that's the point of endorphins. And so we'll feel a euphoria. And runners get endorphins when they've pushed hard. So you have to strain the body to get to the point of endorphins. We get endorphins from these three things: strenuous exercise, so exercising for an extended period before it's released, because again, we've got to push to strain. Laughter reduces endorphins, and the easiest ways to release endorphins are laughter and stretching. Stretching, this is why yoga, when people do yoga, they get endorphin releases, and why their body feels so good, because long, slow stretches will release endorphins. So laughter, and even looking at people laughing, will release. You probably feel better just looking at these paces. So finding ways, like creating a laughter diet where you're adding laughter to your life and adding opportunities to laugh to your life, and doing it on a regular basis, whether it's from watching a comedy or doing improv with a friend or anything like that. But this, laughter, like brushing our teeth and drinking water, should be a recipe. It should be a prescription that we all have daily, that we get a daily dose of half an hour of laughter, whether it's by watching a 30-minute sitcom or sprinkling it throughout the day, right? But we definitely want to cultivate laughter and lightness. Crying releases endorphins, which is why it feels good to cry afterwards, not during, because you're releasing. Aromatherapy, particularly vanilla and lavender, and spicy foods and chocolate also are micro endorphin boosters. So that's cool to know. And we already mentioned stretching and exercise. All right. And then oxytocin is our fourth one. So we have dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. And what's neat about having all four, a list in all four categories, is that you can come up with a plan to do one thing from each list each day to boost, right? To increase the set point of where your brain chemistry is. You're positive, to add positive brain chemistry. It's like adding, maybe you only drink 2 glasses of water a day. It's adding up to drinking 6 glasses of water a day or 7 glasses of water a day will rejuvenate and flush and freshen up your body, and you'll have a different experience. It's the same thing. Adding experiences that boost up these neurotransmitters. And oxytocin is when we feel connected and belonging, when we feel safe with another person, when we feel cared about, a sense of connection. That comes from oxytocin. So positive social connection. Negative social connection simulates cortisol, not oxytocin. So we may be bonded to people who we don't feel good being around, but we're still attached to them. But but it doesn't make us feel safe or secure or good. So we all have people like that, a few people in our lives that are difficult for us to be around. But what we want to do is cultivate a friendship group of people that are positive and supportive. And we all go through slumps when there aren't that many of those people in our life. We go through ebb and flows because in our highly mobile society, we're not in the same tribe all the time. Highly mobile society, people move, go to different colleges. So we can find ourselves in a position of needing to develop a new tribal circle of friends. And so a great way to pursue that when it's time to branch out and make some new friendships, like after being isolated for a year, for example, would be to either clubs, participate in a club where people have a shared interest because of the points of connection, right? So now you're talking to people where you already have something in common. And another way is support groups. And there's lots of different support groups, and there are lots of different organizations that have support groups. And I'll see what I can do to find a list of local support groups, but they're also online on virtually every subject. And the neat thing about support groups is that the people in them want to be supportive, right? So if you've had a lot of experiences of friends who've been dismissive, maybe who haven't been like, they're not at the place in their life, the people that you've been connecting with where they want to make deep friendships, right? The people that you have come across, maybe people who are not ready for deeper friendships that you're ready for. Support groups is a wonderful place to connect with people that are ready to be a positive, and that's their intention, to be a positive social influence on each other. And there are support groups about money and relationships and codependence and becoming free of addictions and all kinds of subjects, right? So every subject under the sun, there is a support group about. And what's beautiful about them, again, there are women's support groups, men's support groups, is that those people that you meet there, my husband is a vet, he's a member of a vet support group. So you're with people who are deciding to be supportive. So they're approaching it with an ethic of care. So it's a wonderful way to begin to expand connection. So oxytocin is considered the cuddle hormone because it's actually released when we hug and when we touch our skin. It's also released during sex, childbirth, and breastfeeding. We get it, the feeling of it, safety in numbers. So when you see crowds together that want to be together, they feel the safety. Oxytocin will be released, like people at a concert or at a rally. Social support is stimulated by trust. So feeling safe in the presence of another person. It motivates us to seek safety in numbers. So while serotonin motivates us to go find that better patch of grass, right, as well as dopamine, oxytocin rewards us as a mammal for staying within the herd, right? So we have this yin yang of going out and achieving and accomplishing and establishing ourselves and shining, as well as merging and being part of the herd, right? So it goes back and forth. Trust triggers oxytocin. We don't want to trust someone who is not trustworthy, right? So we have to be mindful and be aware. We can survive going through a situation. Everybody experiences at some point somebody not coming through for them, disappointing them, or perhaps feeling betrayed. But we can learn to recognize the people that are trustworthy in our lives, and we can become aware and slowly increase how much we trust others. Oxytocin offsets stress. We already saw this with Kelly McGonigal by cueing us to reach out for support. So how can I reach out for support is a great question to ask ourselves when we're feeling stressed. And we can build trust in small ways, in little baby steps. I'm a big fan of lighting a candle method, of lighting one candle at a time, at doing the baby step method. Simple things like holding eye contact slightly longer. We're talking about a second or two, because Humans trust with the eyes. We have whites around our eyes, which lets us know, lets other people be able to read what we're thinking and what we're feeling. So holding eye contact slightly longer, being trustworthy, making commitment to ourselves to come through, to do the things that we say we'll be able to do, to come through for ourselves as much as we can. A lot of times we make promises to ourselves that we don't keep. So beginning to shift that and try to make promises to ourselves that we do keep, right? The whole baby steps thing. So you can get a pet that will be loyal, join a group where you won't be judged, or play a sport where you can share ups and downs, right? Notice what it is, what kind of environment that you want, what kind of social group you want to be around, and move toward that kind of social group rather than just whatever, right? Because of the oxytocin is released in the skin, this is why loofah sponges in the shower and things can be really good, not just for exfoliation, but for stimulating oxytocin. But having a massage is helpful. And being cuddly, even small touches like a squeeze of the shoulder. I like that little monkey. Playing and laughing together. I cannot overstate the power of play. Add play to your life. Play games. Find little ways to add mirth and playfulness and silliness into your days. Okay, this is a massive oxytocin booster to add play, and it also bonds. Children and animals bond through play. So if you want a child to like you, play. If you want an animal to like you, play with it, right? Get down and play with them. And it's the same with other people. Find ways to play. Everybody likes to play in some way. So it's discovering the method that they like to play. My mom likes to play cards. We have a wonderful time playing cards. And we can reflect on our circle of care. Visualize yourself in the center of a circle composed of those who've been kind to you or have inspired you because of their love. And we can move that circle of care out from the self to the inner circle of family and friends, to the extended circle of people like your classmates and teachers, onto your community and the larger world. All right. Project ideas, and these last 3 slides are just a few project ideas. Develop a plan to foster your happy brain chemicals with at least one thing a day from each list of the 4, right? So that would be one project idea. Another way is to figure out how you incorporate stimulating your happy brain chemicals into an overall larger self-care plan that you want to do. Another is to select one of the neurotransmitters that you really want to focus on building, like trust, oxytocin with trust by playing. And you might say, okay, I really want to focus on adding play to my life. I'm going to try to find ways, reflect on, use my imagination to see what I can figure out on ways to play with my family, different people in my life. Just begin to imagine things that you can do. You can stimulate serotonin by developing a vision board of your goals and dreams, or dopamine by trying a new adventure or starting something new. One year, a student signed up for this color run. Another year, students started growing a garden, right? So there's all kinds of new and different things that we can do. And then the last slide is, how would you like to inspire more happy brain chemicals in your life? So this is a lot like deciding to drink 6 instead of 2 glasses of water today. We're going to incorporate more experiences that boost our overall energetic state. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. You go have yourself a happy brain chemical day, and I'll see you next week.